But I wanted to give you a little taste of and remind you of the combative nature of Pam Bondi, sort of understates it in the extreme. Go ahead, Albert, if you will. Here's a bit of some of the stuff. Most people have familiarized themselves with it, but here's a flashback to Pam Bondi.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
your
you're going to answer
theatrics
the
are
question the
ridiculous.
way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people, but I'm going to answer the question.
How many have you indicted?
Again, the time belongs to
Reclaiming my time.
The time belongs.
I think it's very interesting.
Reclaiming my time.
I think it's very interesting.
And you can
when
reclaim
he
your
talks
time.
about they indicted, the president said they indicted him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please stop the clock and stop the clock and restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these
Committee will be in order.
theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New York. We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when you ask a question, the witness gets to answer. You may not like the answer, but she gets to answer.
The question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like the answer, Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest. So he asked a 4-minute question.
Restore 45 seconds, Mr. Nadler, please, Mr. Chairman.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I said that already.
45 seconds.
Okay, I'm timing right now, Mr. Nadler.
All right.
Reclaiming my time. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is 0.
You are acutely aware of how important it is to protect the identity of victims of sexual assault, correct?
Zach Johnson.
I have addressed this multiple times. I think others were cutting me off when I was trying to.
Well, I just simply asked, are you aware of the fact that it's vitally important to protect the identity of sexual assault victims as you prosecute the people they accuse of assaulting them? Isn't that correct?
Excuse me. As we have said multiple times,
Protection of the identity
of all victims
of the victims
are
is
protected.
so very
You are
important.
protected under. Do you want me to answer or do you want to interrupt?
Well, because you're not answering the question. You do a Jekyll and Hyde kind of routine around here, and I just want you to answer my questions.
What does Jekyll and Hyde mean? Can you explain
it means
that?
you're nice to the
Explain
Republicans and you turn like Hyde on Democrats.
I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous, and that they are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked that those files
I'm reclaiming my time.
be
I got your
released.
answer. You said there's no
President
evidence.
Trump asked
Mr. Chairman, please
I'd like
stop
to
the clock.
reclaim my
Please
time.
stop the clock.
the legislation. This is
Time.
I'd like to reclaim
ridiculous.
my
Time belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center because I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is all on videotape. You said there's no evidence of crime. I'm showing you, here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center. He drove Donald Trump around in a limo. He overheard what Donald Trump said to Jeffrey on his cell phone. He was so angry, he was going to stop a limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown off, and officers at the scene said that could not have been suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness. You need to interview this witness immediately. Epstein should rot in hell, so should the men who patronized his operation. And as we sit here today, there are over 1,000 sex trafficking victims. and you have not held a single man accountable. Shame on you. If you had any decency, you would resign right
Ted
after.
Lieu finishing up. This continues, and I know you guys have seen this stuff over and over, but there are basic aspects of oversight that are being played out here. Give me a little of the Nagoose back and forth, because this is sort of I thought these were questions that didn't just pertain to Epstein. They pertain to sort of the way she's running the agency. They're basic oversight type questions. Here's a little bit, and then we'll catch you on the other side here and we'll talk about it.
Law enforcement, the Trump administration will come for you, end quote. I want to show you just a brief video. It's about 30 seconds, and I'll ask you a couple questions about it.
So then they show the video of the January 6th rioters, and one in particular who's speaking nastily toward police. That's understandable.
The sad thing is they're not even going to get their pension because it's going to be worthless. And shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you.
This is after going after the cops there on January 6th.
Attorney General Bondi, that man works for you now, right?
Who was that, Congressman?
The man in that video, the one who was in the police-worn body cam footage, the one allegedly yelling, "Kill him," at police officers on January 6th, his name is Jared Wise.
He does work for us.
He works for you at the Department of
he
Justice.
He does.
This is an individual whom a federal grand jury indicted for 2 felonies and 4 misdemeanors related to his participation in the attack on January 6th. One of those charges was forcibly assaulting, resisting, opposing, impeding, intimidating, and interfering with police with the intent to commit another felony. This is who you choose as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America to hire at the Department of Justice. Someone on video yelling, "Kill him," at police officers, right?
I believe he was pardoned by President Trump.
Oh, he was pardoned. You're right. You're right. Pardoned by President Trump for his offense. Pardoned for yelling, "Kill him," at police officers. And yet you expect hardworking police officers across the country to believe that you take law enforcement seriously. You could imagine the reaction of so many folks across the country hearing the chief law enforcement officer of the United States refuse to even condemn what that individual whom you've now hired did. But in any event,
he goes
let's
on,
talk a little
and then
bit
he
about
goes
some of
on
the
to
other-
talk about the fact that she's gutted the crypto regulation structure that is at the Justice Department. He goes on. I thought it was really great because he visited a number of different things related to oversight. All right, Pam Bondi, that entire oversight hearing, thoughts on how it went down, maybe the damage perhaps to her, or did it play so well with the only guy she cares about, Donald Trump, that it was a W for her? How about you, Michael?
Did you not see where the Dow is, Mark? It's above 50,000. I mean, so who does this play well for? I don't know that it plays well for the United States. I think when you see the way that this attorney general behaved in front of it's always partisan there, but it was less partisan than it often is because Thomas Massie was echoing the sentiments of most of his Democratic colleagues on that committee. When you see this play out, it's not good for the administration. If Donald Trump liked the pugilism of his attorney general, the prepared jokes and one-liners that didn't all go off very well, then that's one thing. But in terms of the way America is digesting this and seeing the women behind her and seeing the way that she was not answering, deflecting, personalizing, I don't think that's a victory for any administration. And I think also, I mean, the last exchange with Nagoose, you knew that she was going to say he was pardoned by Donald Trump, and you knew that Nagoose was ready to say, oh, he was pardoned. Well, ... You still chose to hire him. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good in an enduring way. The pardon was not a popular move by the president in terms of the general public. And I think as you get into congressional elections this year, these are not the sort of things, and I'm not going to say that there are many people that are going to walk into the booth and think about this hearing that happened 7 months or 8 or 9 months before they vote. But there's a cumulative effect that's happening right now on independent voters, some Republicans, and virtually all Democrats that are going to make it very difficult for members of Congress running for re-election to get elected.
Mo?
I'm old enough to remember when America was decent, had dignity, and espoused decorum. And this is just the latest example of indecency, undignified behavior, and lacking decorum. I'm old enough to remember when there was a partition between the Justice Department and the executive branch, if only because of Richard Nixon. And we knew that the Justice Department had the responsibility, if need be, of investigating the executive branch. I mean, could you imagine America settling for that behavior from Eric Holder or Alberto Gonzalez or Loretta Lynch? Remember the actual scandal when Loretta Lynch met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac, and it threw into question the legitimacy of the Clinton investigation at that time.
She had to recuse herself. Yeah.
Absolutely. We are not that country anymore. And it's hard for me to wrap my mind around this. We had an attorney general who was openly celebrating and politicking for the sitting president. And we're supposed to believe that this Justice Department would actually prosecute or indict individuals connected to the Trump administration? Absolutely not.
Does Bondi take any hits from this? It seems as though she's endured public ridicule, but as I say, I think it played well at the White House. Just give me, as this administration begins to take on a little water politically, and I want to ask you about how much water you think they are taking on. Maybe you don't think they're taking on any. But Bondi's popularity was already ebbing. She was, with the White House, not as popular, it was rumored, because she wasn't enough of an attack dog for Donald Trump. This seems to, maybe fly in the face of that, although she was very inelegant in her responses. It was just sort of a mess. But does Bondi, at the end of all of this, have any exposure, Michael, or do you think she's in pretty good shape still?
It's hard to say. I mean, does Kristi Noem, does Kash Patel, does Pam Bondi? I think as the year goes forward and polling indicates that people aren't happy, if that's the case, then that's when people start to take the fall. That's when people start to maybe even step away. But that's when Susie Wiles goes to the president and says, we've got to make some changes here. We have to show that we're not satisfied with X, Y, or Z. And it might take an indictment that happens. It may take that, in Kristi Noem's case, that ICE overextended into extrajudicial territory that we all know they have, but for the actual courts and for the Justice Department to realize that and say that. So there are, I don't think one day in front of the Congress does anything. Look, we're talking about it a few days after. People will talk about it over the weekend, go on for a little while. To Pam Bondi, it was one day. To these members of Congress, they've all gone back to their district. So it's not like that's lingering constantly. And Donald Trump is certainly not thinking about that at this very moment. So I think that there is a point, though, when some of these people will have to be reckoned with. And that happens in every administration, to be frank. But I think it's extreme in this administration. I think it's going to have political fallout. And Donald Trump, when there's political fallout, tends to respond to that.
The question I was sort of positing in general, Mo, which is the question about popularity of policy and the stink of some of these policies. Minnesota, I think, is one of the situations that's gotten out of hand for them. They're pulling back now to the point that they're removing ICE and Border Patrol troops from Minneapolis. Can you speak to whether or not this administration is taking on any water politically? They seem to be polling pretty poorly, and I'm wondering if we can draw anything from this.
I want to take a slightly different approach to this, and I want to borrow from Michael Schur. He used the word cumulative, and I think it applies here. The cumulative effect is a net negative for the administration. I don't think Pam Bondi did herself any favors. I don't think Minneapolis did the administration any favors when you talk about big picture. And there's something else to consider. They keep losing. Pam Bondi can't get the indictment when it comes to the 6 Democrats, as far as the don't follow illegal orders scandal, quote unquote. They can't secure any convictions when it comes to James Comey and also Tish James. They're losing again and again. And then when they're leaving Minnesota, getting back to your question, and having to leave with their tail between their legs, it suggests that the policies which were originally popular are not effective even for the Trump administration. And then when the news comes out, it's averaging about $1 million per detainee or deportation. You can't effectively point to anything which says to the American people that either the administration is effective in its policy objectives, or that they're even pleasing Republican media. When I'm watching Fox News, yes, I do watch it from time to time, and there is criticism of not only Pam Bondi, but also what is happening in Minnesota. It says to me that this is not landing with even those on the right in the way that they originally hoped.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's a great summary. I think this is beginning to be a policy that has so much trouble associated with it. It's clearly so complicated and it affects so many different communities. I mean, rural communities are affected, the urban communities are destabilized, that there's a lot more here. I want to ask you about something that just happened, and being a tree hugger as I am, but I don't think you need to be a tree hugger to be mournful today because of this new Trump policy, essentially erasing the tepid protections there were for the environment, and the embracing, as this administration has now done, and the underpinning of and supporting of dirty energy that they've done with American taxpayer money. And they talk about the breaks that, these alternative energy programs get. Now the idea that you're going to be, giving these coal companies and various dirty energy efforts on the part of coal companies and this entire industry, which should be closing down, new life. It's despicable. Play a little bit of Trump embracing coal.
Dependable and really dependable form of energy that we have, and that's clean, beautiful coal. Biden and the radical left wanted to abolish coal. They did everything they could, everything possible. But on day one of this administration, I ended the war on coal. We terminated the Green New Scam, and we withdrew from the unfair, one-sided Paris Climate Accord. That was another beauty we had. We paid $1 trillion. Nobody else had to pay 10 cents. Already I've saved
That's not true.
74 coal power plants from crushing restrictions and closures that would have been forced to shut down in the very immediate future. And today I'm proud to announce that the Tennessee Valley Authority is taking action to save 2 major coal plants in Tennessee. Tennessee Valley Authority. The plants are the Cumberland Fossil Plant and the Cumberland City. It's in Cumberland City. It's a big, beautiful thing that they just wanted to shut down. The Tennessee Valley Authority has gone in a very stupid, very bad direction. The head of it, it's considered sort of semi-private. It's supposed to be semi-public, but it's semi-private. It's the highest paid government type official in history. I think they pay them $10 million a year. They're paying them $10 million. I think the Speaker of the House wants to resign and head the Tennessee Valley Authority. And he could do a much better job, I can tell you that. Is that right, Doug? They pay him $10 million a year. Can you believe it? Well, Trump is on the scene now. We're going to make his life miserable. $10 million. I wonder what he got before he got that job. Probably making $150,000, right? And the Kingston.
All right. Let's stop right there. The idea somehow that there's corruption at the TVA, that's sort of unrelated to all of this. I'm more concerned with the fact that you're taking this industry, which was going away. It was going away because the free market isn't there to support it. And basic, as I suggest, tepid pollution regulations were such that the coal industry just couldn't survive. And so now you're supercharging this dirty energy. And then he brags about pulling us out of the Paris Climate Accord. It's the whole thing makes my skin crawl. Speak to this, Michael, please.
Well, first of all, I speak to it from someone who follows elections pretty closely, and I don't, I very objectively speaking, whether I, and we know that I agree with the Paris Accord, and I think this is almost criminal what they're doing to our country and our environment and our kids, et cetera, without getting hokey about it. But the point is, I think it is surprisingly short-sighted politically. And I say surprisingly because generally speaking, this White House they've gotten elected twice. They kind of know what they're doing in politics a lot of the time, certainly in electoral politics and setting themselves up. But what I'm seeing right now is they're trying to burnish their bona fides with their base when that's not where they need to go. And I think they're certainly alienating people with this, maybe alienating people who are already off of their brand, never were on it. But I do think it's really poor politics here to go after shoring up your base in places like Tennessee, like West Virginia, like Kentucky. That's not necessarily where this party needs to be spending their time, money, attention, and political capital. They need to go into places where this is an unpopular thing and try and find other popular things to run on. So from a purely political standpoint, I find it curious. I don't find it at all curious that this president is doing it. He talked about it in his first term. He talked about it when he was running for president the first and second and third time. This is something that he likes doing, but he's also arcane in going after Joe Biden and the liberal Democrats, because most liberals do not consider Joe Biden part of their group, or with progressives. I'm not quite sure what the president said just now, but going after old ghosts behind him is not where Donald Trump is also most politically expedient. And I think it's it's showing a political deficiency that is surprising, and I think should be worrying for the party as a whole going into November. Probably not the take you thought you were going to get, but I think that's what this was about for me, more than how I rate it makes me the substance of what he's doing.
No, also, I think it's fascinating. The political side is something, you're right, I hadn't even considered it, and I'm all, yeah.
Just that when something is semi-private, it is also implicitly semi-public.
Well, of course, he went through. He's ad-libbing there. You saw a little bit. I think of like he's dementia adjacent. He struggles with the reading. He is trying to ad-lib, and so that he does. That was his little, right? He's riffing there, right? Semi-private. I can call it semi-public.
It
should be
do that, right? He makes things up as he goes along, and it sounds good to him as he's saying it. But I just thought it was funny. Oh, it's supposed to be semi-public, but it's semi-private.
No, he's just well, he's playing the part as best he can. Still see the cue cards. Also going after the Green New Deal. I guess maybe he felt that there was some political capital there, Mo. I think the last thing I'll just say is that, and he wasn't mentioned in this particular cut, but he has mandated the Pentagon and the military to use coal energy to fuel a lot of their various programs and efforts, however it is apportioned. And it's even a greater affront, I think. But please, go ahead.
There's a theme, there's a through line in all of this. You say he's like dementia adjacent, and one of the common symptoms of dementia or cognitive impairment is time shifting, and he is stuck in like 1972. I'm old enough, once again, to remember the OPEC crisis. What he was talking about there would have been perfect if he were running against Richard Nixon, who was going to eventually start the EPA. That would have been fine in 1972, talking about the expansion of coal. Not in 2026. There's one thing which is, it's ironic because everything that he is talking about is looking backward. And even in Making America Great Again, it's looking backward. And we have a society which is perpetually moving forward. He has no vision of the future, with the exception of crypto. That's about the only thing that I'll concede is at least looking forward is for self-enrichment, but it is still largely looking backward. And I think that is partially connected to his cognitive issues where he cannot even conceive of a world in the 21st century, and is also connected to his inability to understand the world that he's presently in. We cannot actually have ships that are running on coal or steam. We can't go back to mining. I mean, it's ridiculous on its face. And Michael makes a great point where he is talking only to the like-minded. If you're talking about coal and your manufacturing in West Virginia and everything, he already has those people. He already has those votes. He's not developing anyone who's actually going to save him in the midterms. And if he's thinking that if he only holds on to Republicans for the midterms, that will save him, he is, well, once again, he's deluded.
It's interesting that you talk about the midterms, both of you, and the politics of it all. I wonder if you can just, again, flash me back to the Fulton County raid and the takeover of all of that under the guise of, under the guise of investigation into the 2020 election, which in itself was ridiculous because it had been over-investigated twice, manual counts, et cetera. But as you look at the increasing specter of them messing around in some way on the from this regime on the issue of the midterms and elections generally, I just wonder at what point you feel an alarm going off. I mean, Michael, I always feel like you're the, I go nuts and you kind of chill me out. I mean, so chill me out on this.
Well, I can chill you out on this. Personally, I think that the people who are saying, "Oh, this is all about the midterms. This is sowing seeds of doubt. This is," maybe there's a little bit of that, right? Maybe there's some scare tactics in here to state election boards, but this is still Donald Trump's world in that realm, and the fact is that Donald Trump still thinks he was robbed in 2020. There's still a part of him that thinks that he wants to be the only person elected 3 times since Roosevelt. I think that it is so driven by retribution. Everything that he does is driven by retribution and loyalty, right? So what Mo was talking about just now with the coal miners and everything, that's loyalty too, right? That's dancing with the ones who brung you, even though it may not have political payoff in the future. But I think that, a lot of people are saying, oh, we should all be scared about election. We always should be scared about elections. We should always make sure that our elections are fair and safe. And we've done an unbelievable job of doing that, right? I mean, election fraud is tiny. It's grains of sand on a beach. And I think that's what people are getting all excited about now is, oh, they're going to do it again. They always do it, right? This is no different. I think Donald Trump in Atlanta and Fulton County was all about Donald Trump.
And you, Mo, how concerned are you?
I'm concerned because I believe that we got Donald Trump not once or twice due to, in part, a failure of imagination, an underestimation of his appeal and how his message may resonate with certain swaths of the country. And a failure of imagination to think that he would not go so far as to do X, or he would not dare do Y, or push the boundaries of the Constitution. He wouldn't dare, foment an insurrection. That's what I mean by a failure of imagination. And I would caution the Democrats against believing that he's not capable of the unbelievable or seeming impossible. Since he does aspire in many ways to be a dictator, then for me, then everything is on the table. The use of the military to enforce his goals. We see that with ICE, the commandeering of ballots, the intimidation at voting centers, all of that will come into play. And if we don't foresee the possibility, then we collectively would be unprepared for the eventual reality if and when it happens.
Yeah, I want to agree with what Mo's saying. I totally agree. And it's vitally important. I also think it's worked, right? For the most part, it works when we do that. And we have a good record of doing that. The motivation for Fulton County, though, I think that you also have to look at just the ego of this man. And that is a big part of why they went back to Fulton County. I don't think that is connected necessarily to the other. And Joe Biden won the nomination fairly. He lost the election fairly. He all of those things because of the kind of the kind of guardrails we have on elections.
I wanted to play you something. I'm running so late. Okay, this is just unbelievable. This guy, Jeremy Carl, he's a nominee for the State Department post. He's this white nationalist. He's made all these weird is, I don't even know if it's a really relevant way to classify it. I mean, he's made these loathsome comments. But here's a little bit. He's a white nationalist, so he's made a lot of comments about blacks. He made comments about Jews. Here he is lit up for a minute and just speaks to the, again, these appointments that Trump makes, and that's administration and regime is just full of guys like this. Go ahead.
And white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity?
Senator, it would thank you again for the question, and genuinely thank you for finally letting me have a chance to explain some of my comments a little bit. But I would say that, they could be things like going to a certain type of Christian church and that sort of culture, which is very different. I mean, you can all be Christians, right, in a certain environment, but African-American Christians might worship differently than Chinese Christians that might worship differently than white Christians. Of course, sometimes you have multi-ethnic churches, but things like that, certain types of Anglo-derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this. Senator, I would say if you were to look at the book by one of your former Senate colleagues, Born Fighting, about the sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that, that would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and those are in many ways more.
Yeah, but you're worried about white culture. You're not worried about, you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than black identity.
Senator, again, thank you.
You spent a lot of time talking about this and writing about this.
Yeah,
no. You're struggling with this. But you should be fairly easily, I would assume, able to tell us your thoughts on how white identity is different than other kinds of identity and how it's being erased.
Senator, again, thank you for the question. I'm just trying to be I'm just trying to be very precise. Because I'm here in front of a Senate committee, I would say that the white church is very different than the black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those
music could be different.
And those are being erased.
Music could be different. Well, if you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, which was not in English this year.
So our ability to access white churches or white food or white music is being erased?
Senator, again, thank you for the question. What I would say is the biggest thing, because actually, contrary to many of the comments that have been shown, racial nationalists have been very, very critical of my work because they correctly say that I'm actually, of course, not a racial nationalist, which I'm not. I'm a civic nationalist. I am concerned with the majority common American culture that we had for some time that through particularly mass immigration, I think has become much more balkanized. And I think that weakens us. And again, I'm not running away from that comment. I'm not apologizing for it.
I'm way over my time.
Again, this goes on, and honestly, it reminds me of these morons in college that used to try. This absolutely so reminds me of different college conversations I had like this, where you're dealing with these absolute idiots.
This is so ridiculous.
Yeah, thank you. But Mo, it's again, they tee these guys up. This guy's he's legit a guy who's filled with that kind of prejudice and bigotry. He's a legit nominee to occupy a State Department post. He's going to be dealing with all these different ethnicities and all of these different people worldwide.
Let me step out of my professional accoutrement for a moment. African-American man. I worshiped in a Lutheran church growing up, and then a fully black AME, African Methodist Episcopal church. So I can speak to this as a Christian. I grew up in I would say basically segregated Torrance, California. It was a sundown town. So I understand this idea of white culture. When you want to blame and he blamed immigrants for the diminution of white culture. It's not taking into account American history. He talked about the Super Bowl and how it was in Spanish and not English. Puerto Rico did not ask to be a part of the American empire. And the expansion of America, inclusive of like Hawaii and Alaska, has included cultures and traditions which were never Anglo. And then the expectation that they are supposed to endorse and espouse Anglo culture coming from Europe is a lie and a misdirection. As far as Christianity is concerned, the worship tradition is different because African Americans were not even allowed to congregate during the time of slavery, with the exception of Christian discipleship and worship. That's part of the reason why the civil rights movement came out of the Black church. You have people like C.T. Vivian and Martin Luther King and even Malcolm X as far as the Nation of Islam. I'm bouncing around, but the point is, when you talk about America, you have to talk about the fullness of how we came to be, which is inclusive of the empire and domination of cultures, including Native Americans, Inuit, and also Polynesian cultures and Puerto Rican cultures, which you're then trying to force them into this Anglo matrix, which is never going to happen. It's not immigration, it's called hegemony.
Michael, this guy, and I've already seen GOP even is not going to vote to get this guy through.
No,
Certain
and
GOP senators.
Yeah, and I actually I read Jim Webb's book. He said your former colleague. He was talking about Jim Webb. That book, Born Fighting, came out I don't know, in the early 2000s, I think. And he cites the book, but he's wrong about it. I mean, Jim Webb talks about how the Scots-Irish heritage that he had and that so many Americans have that kind of explain the rise of conservatism in the country, and why George Bush won and that sort of thing. He said because people of Scots-Irish heritage have always been fighters, and they look at it from a bottom-up rather than a top-down kind of way. If I remember the book, it's been a long time, but it was about the fighting spirit. And this guy is saying the opposite, right? He's saying push out the bottom and let's only elevate the top, the people that are in the majority here for the next few moments, right? Let's make sure we don't have a Spanish song at halftime in a country that doesn't have an official language. All of this that had nothing to do with the book that Jim Webb wrote, by the way. It had nothing at all to do with the book that he wrote. And so that to me was ironic. And yeah, I mean, what Mo says.
Well, I saw a guy in that moment who was drowning rhetorically and just throwing stuff up, realizing, perhaps what we all realized, that his hateful outlook was only being amplified in this moment. And
there's a...
He had the flop sweat was going, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, you caught me. Right.
Yeah, right. Oh, you caught me. Exactly. Better put. Guys, thank you. Thank you for staying a little overtime with me. Mo, appreciate you. Michael, appreciate you as well. And I look forward to next week. Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you. Michael Shore and Mo Kelly.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped. And please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.